Lovely seeing all of your beautiful faces in this room. Um, if you're watching this via live stream on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, as a reminder, we want you interacting as well. So feel free to ask questions in the comments, regardless if you're in the Zoom audience, live Zoom audience, or one of the live streams. I want you to introduce yourself right now. What's your name? What city are you coming from? If you'd like, add your LinkedIn if you want to kind of grow your LinkedIn kind of community as well. Remember, we want you a part of this conversation. So please introduce yourselves, what city you're coming from. And I love seeing your comments and just seeing, all the places you guys are around the world, from Africa to Asia to Europe, etc. As a reminder, our community of 7 live streams and our micro learnings really help our listeners elevate their mindset and skill set by bringing in leading authors, coaches, executives, founders, and subject matter experts. Our goal is to democratize training and development for all. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's just Community of 7 on YouTube, and you can watch past episodes. We'll also be uploading this episode probably like in a few weeks or so after we edit it. And once again, for those who are in the live Zoom audience, if you feel comfortable, please turn on your videos because we love seeing your beautiful faces. I know for me as a speaker, it's so helpful when I actually am able to see you and see your expressions. So I'm excited for today's micro learning on how to unlock your inner strength and mastering resiliency with Hussein Al-Baiaty. Life's journey is filled with unexpected twists and turns and a lot of setbacks, right? It's inevitable that we're going to run into hard times. But I'm a firm believer that these setbacks, these, hardships are a vital part on the road to success and even happiness. I think what sets apart those who thrive from those who are mainly just live or falter is the ability to bounce back with resiliency. And simply said, resiliency is the ability to recover quickly from setbacks and the difficulties we have and face in life. And today we're going to talk about the profound importance of building resiliency in your life and how it can transform your life and impact you in ways that you can't even imagine. I feel like I've spent my entire life searching for purpose and meaning. The question and the quest for why has been this lifelong journey. Right? Why was I put on this earth, right? But my life took a profound turn when I was a freshman at Stanford University, when I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. For those who aren't familiar with Frankl, he was a Holocaust survivor who saw his entire family executed. When he recounted and saw so much suffering in the Holocaust, in the concentration camps, he wondered why some of those who were imprisoned were quickly able to recover, while others just gave up. And in his harrowing survival story from the Holocaust, when he was eventually able to escape, he created logotherapy, which is a branch of psychology that focuses on how discovering your life's purpose is a means to not only survive, but thrive in life. So I started really to reflect on my own background as a refugee escaping war-torn Vietnam and being raised in poverty in LA. And I faced a lot of hardship growing up from gang violence to poverty to despair. And I often question to God, why me? Why was I dealt with such a challenging hand? My father had passed away when I was 19, and I had to support myself financially since 17. But when I read Frankel's words when I was in college, it awakened me. I had a realization that I wasn't a victim of my circumstances. I had power to change my destiny. And it was the space between the traumas that I endured and my response where my strength lived. I had a choice. I had power. I had agency that I owned and controlled. And that made all the difference. I wasn't a victim. Life wasn't happening to me. It was happening for me. That's why I'm so excited to have you hear Hussein's amazing journey. Like me, he came to America as a refugee. I was fortunate to meet him when I was at a book retreat about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And his story is so powerful. Whether you aspire to grow in your career, your life, strengthen your relationships, or simply navigate the complexities of life with grace and determination, learning resiliency is the magical key that will help you find your way when things get tough. So before I introduce Hussein, if you're watching this on live stream or if you're watching it in the live Zoom audience, in the comments or in the chat, I want you to write down, but don't press send till I tell you, the name of one person that is the most resilient person you know in your life and why. What makes them resilient? And while you're writing that, I'm going to give you my example. The most resilient person I know is my mother. And the reason why I say that is she's endured so much difficulties. Us leaving Vietnam, we basically left with, the clothes on our backs. But my mother had so much trauma in her life from having to raise 5 kids, her sisters and her brothers, and basically sacrificing everything for our family. But she's the most resilient person. And the reason why she's resilient is she's never given up. And she's always kind of had our family, supported our family through thick and thin. So I'm going to count down and you're going to press send. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press send. And so my friend Jen, who survived her daughter's murder at Sandy Hook, oh gosh, and her husband Jeremy to suicide. Oh my gosh, Lee. This breaks my heart. Amy, my mother, she faced poverty and physical health challenges, but overcame and triumphed. She remains kind and gentle despite life being unkind. Oh, you guys are going to make me cry. Casey, who stayed positive, facing adversity, and 2 parents with dementia. My mother has dementia, and it's probably one of the hardest things you can go through. Diana Nyad, who never gave up her, and I just watched that documentary. It's so powerful. Her quest to swim from Cuba to Florida. My grandmother, Missy, says she's a profile in courage. I love this. Thank you so much, everyone. I am so excited to introduce my friend, Hussein Al-Baiaty. Hussein is a solopreneur, author, and resilience advocate. His remarkable journey from a war-torn refugee camp in Iraq to a thriving entrepreneur is a testament to his unwavering resiliency. And gosh, for those of you that have had the honor to know Hussein, he is such a remarkable, powerful force of nature. In just a decade, he built $1 million printing company, served clients from local pizzerias to global giant Nike, and authored the best-selling book, Art of Resilience, The Refugee State of Mind. Today, Hussein is dedicated to working with nonfiction authors helping them build their online brands and share their powerful stories. And I am so excited to have him here today. Without further ado, welcome Hussein. Woohoo! Hello, Hussein.
Hey, Lam, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be just hanging out with you. Seriously, you've helped me so much, and I love everything you said about, who is that person that is the most resilient person that you know, because we learn so much from the people around us. And if we have that person that we kind of look up to and think about like, wow, I'm going through something, but they went through something that was unimaginable to me. Like, what can I learn from that? And I feel like that's always been like a testament to my life. To me, it was my father.
Mhm.
If we just backtrack a little bit, after the Gulf War in 1990, my family and I ended up being refugees in this desert camp, literally outside of Saudi Arabia, like right on the border of Iraq and Saudi Arabia. And, my father did something absolutely remarkable. He was a painter, he was an artist, he was a poet. He brought theater to the south of Iraq, had women come on. I mean, he did things that were, very rebellious in some regards and innovative in some ways. But he was always very forward thinking, very positive. And so I got really lucky to have someone like that in my life. But when we came to that refugee camp, he did something even more remarkable. He took torn up tents that were made from canvas and he started painting. He would ask like the guards that were guarding this refugee camp, because we're literally in a prison, and he convinced them to paint their wives or their horses or these different things, and they would pay him and they would bring him art supplies, and he started to build a network with these people that were literally guarding the refugee camp. And for an extra bag of rice or an extra this or an extra thing of water or whatever it was, he leveraged his art abilities and his way of connecting with people by telling stories and really being interested in other people, to all the way having them coming to our tent and having tea and just kind of hanging out with my dad. Well, that story evolved, and then that's how we eventually came to America, was because my father's art started becoming known in that refugee camp amongst those soldiers. And he ended up meeting the guy that ran the refugee camp. That guy hired him to do a big old painting for him, and kind of the rest is history. And we got to come to America when I was about 8 years old. But everything he did in that refugee camp is really like the first half of my book was really dedicated to him and what he taught me, and how we walked around, and how he would do things that were, to me now, just seemed so incomprehensible. Like they were so beyond me. Meaning, like there was this board in the middle of this refugee camp, right? And every week they put names on there about for people that were going to get interviews with America, the U.S. immigration or the Australian, whatever it was, to help people come out of there. And every week he would go to this board and sadly not see our name, but he would shed a few tears, and then he would look for other people's names, like people he might know. And then once he found somebody he knew, he would go and visit them and congratulate them, and bring them a gift or bring them baklava or something. He wanted for others what he wanted. I mean, this makes me tear up because he wanted more for others, for even more than he wanted it for himself. And I think there was just some beauty in that. And he drugged me, like he took me with him on these little journeys that he would do around camp, and it taught me a lot about a human being that was very much interested in other people and helping other people, and in the course of that, still practice his art and still leverage that art to get connections to help himself out of a bad situation. And I carry that story like it's the gold that it is, because it helps me every single day. And I carry his heart with me. Unfortunately, he passed in 2016, but I very much hold on to him and his stories and his ability to be so resilient in such a trying time. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I ended up coming to America in 1994. Again, art literally saved my life. Had my dad not taken up that paintbrush, had he not had the courage to do what he loved, um,
Wow,
I'm not
I
sure
wish I
we would have
could
come
have.
out of there.
I wish I could have met your father. He just seems like such an amazing person. And while you were
Yeah.
telling me your story, I keep on thinking about some of the most amazing artists are able to
Yeah.
transform pain into beauty. And that's
Yes.
what I was thinking of when you were talking about your father. And I think about, my mother as well,
Yeah.
right? Being
Yeah.
able to kind of turn hardship into something like a beautiful family in my
Yeah.
mother's case. But
Yeah.
one of the things I'm really ashamed of when I look back now is that
Mm.
when I was growing up, I was ashamed of being Vietnamese, being a refugee, being poor. And it wasn't until I hopefully became wiser and older that I realized that that's what made me strong, right? And that was what the most important parts of me were the things that I was kind of running away from, right? The brokenness, right? The hardships that I faced. And one of the things I
Yes.
always say is that our scars, our pain, scar tissue has always been stronger than healthy skin, right?
Mm.
And we become tougher through these painful experiences. And I think your dad was a testament to that. I think my mom was a testament to that. She raised a family of five as
Yeah.
a hairdresser, and she never made more than 15,000 a year, right? And then she sent, I went to Stanford, my other brother went to UCLA and other colleges. And it's just, you think about the whole refugee mindset, right? Of like just you find 5 cents and you kind of turn it into a dime, and then that dime you turn it into a dollar, and you're able to feed your family, right? So tell us about your journey, your personal journey from being a refugee to an entrepreneur. Can you share some, your journey? You talked about your father and then how, his art
Yeah.
brought you into the United States. How did
Yeah.
the challenges that you faced shape your understanding of resiliency, and what does resiliency mean to you?
Yeah, these are all great questions. I think, the journey going forward from when we came to America, I was very young, so I was very malleable. And I too, to be honest with you, I too like attest to that idea of like I was ashamed, like I didn't speak English, I was on welfare. We lived in like the small little tiny apartment. And all. We had, there was nine of us in our family with seven kids, mom and dad. But I'm very grateful because I had older siblings that, worked their asses off and like help provide for the family, and everybody was kind of in it to help one another. So I was very grateful that I got to grow up in that, and that allowed for me to really practice art as well. I started having these abilities that I started fostering, and with my dad's help and my siblings, I started drawing and painting and doing all this. As I grew up, I knew art was like a language that I knew attracted people. So whether I was drawing Spider-Man when I was a kid or paint or getting hired to paint a mural when I got older, I knew that, holding a paintbrush or my art abilities, my design eye was going to be the door opener for whatever I was wanting to do. So after that, I got into architecture school, which was a blessing in of itself. And then I graduated. And during that, I started a t-shirt printing business. And it was literally just to make some extra bucks to pay for books and so and whatnot. And I was just trying my hand at a business, but honestly, it was a kind of like a hustle. Like I knew people needed t-shirts, and I knew I could make t-shirts because I learned this craft from this guy I worked with. And so I was going through architecture school, was extremely difficult, but um up the street from the school there was this little barber shop, and in the basement of that barber shop I rented out literally the basement, and it was like $200 a month. The guy was really cool, and that's where I started my like t-shirt printing business. And with that, I just hustled. I just like wanted to meet. I knew meeting people, just like my dad sort of taught me, was like that was the epicenter of how you're going to grow anything, relationships, businesses, whatever it was. So I knew that meeting people was a big part of that. And so I put myself in positions where I can meet people that would be interested in my services. So design and t-shirt printing. So, long story short, after I finished my university stuff, I was like, you know what? It was 2010. I couldn't get a job as an architect, like anywhere. I applied like literally over 100 locations, and unfortunately, it just wasn't working out because we were in a pretty bad recession at the time. So, but I kept getting phone calls and emails about t-shirt printing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this serious for the next couple of years, and I can always fall back on my architecture, but at least I can make some money here. Soon enough, I kind of started folding that into growing the business. You know, soon after that, like a year after that, my brother joined me, and he started helping me with the projects and stuff. And honestly, within 3 years, we had like two automatic presses. You know, we were getting jobs from Nike and, you know, different, you know, again, just going out and meeting people and putting myself in positions where I can really help and be of service. That was really big. But, you know, I think with that, I learned a lot. Like I failed a lot at t-shirt printing. There was orders where I messed up and it was like $2,000 down the drain. There was times where I would stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, but ultimately what I wanted was something that, you know, my whole family can like feed from, right? Like can we can all eat from it. And I, you know, once it grew and we started getting Nike contracts, Adidas and Trailblazers contracts, like I knew I was really onto something. And it wasn't just the business itself and how it functioned. It was really my ability to connect with people. And that's what I love the most. And that's what kept me going because I was interested in people. And the more I like, the more I made sure that they got a great experience working with me, the more that reassured business was going to keep coming, right? Because they would tell other people and so on and so forth. So people constantly were introducing me to other people. And it was kind of like how my father did his thing, you know, growing up in Iraq and then in that refugee camp and even in the States, um, was that connections with people and you know just being warm-hearted and being eager, not being in a competitive state, being in a very collaborative state. And that really, you know, changed everything. And I use this ability to be resilient really is like it's an embodiment, meaning like you can't control tomorrow, yesterday. You certainly can't control tomorrow. The only thing in front of you is the thing that you got to worry about and think about. And so my dad used to say, you know, don't give it 110%. Put all of yourself into it. So if you have 100% that day, put it all in. If you have 200% that day, put it all in. If you have 10%, put that in. Because not every day is going to be your full 100, right? So give it all you got and leave it at the table. And just make sure that when you leave that day or you leave that work or that conversation or that person or whatever, that you gave it your all. You gave it your all in listening. You gave it your all in your heart. And everything will always work out because people want to work with people. And I will never forget that because it is the truest statement, and it applies to everything. It literally applies to everything across my life. So I use resilience as an embodiment, meaning like there are so many things outside of our control. More or less everything outside of our bodies is outside of our control. So if we can control our mindset, then we can control our intention and where we're going. And I think if we can sort of not be distracted by all this other BS outside of us, which is very distracting, let's be real. In our world today, our world is noisy and distracting, and it will take you away from your purpose, which is you. My dad used to always say this to me. He said, a lot of people are out there searching for purpose, but the reality is, you are the purpose unfolding. The more you do what you are passionate about, what you are gifted with, what you are brilliant at, the more you do that, the more you unfold that, that's you being the purpose that we need. And I'll never forget stuff like that because it's so true. Everything you are is inside of you already. You're already super resilient. I mean, think about your ancestors and how they all came to this point. Think about the pandemic that we all just went through. That's resilience, right? Think about how you take care of your kids every single day. Think about how you go to work. Resilience is a part of who we are as human beings. It's our DNA. But what prevents our resilience from really coming out is we add and layer stories that don't benefit us. So I look at my refugee story as something that benefited me, not something that has drugged me down. And like, yes, there are times in my life where that angered me or frustrated me or politically it charged me. But at the same time, when I can take that energy and take it from anger and move it to peace, I started things like refugees, which was like a refugee basically campaign, which was basically like when you work with us, when you work with my company, my goal was to take 10% of those profits and give it to refugee centers around Oregon to help them with needed goods. Sometimes I would buy backpacks. Sometimes I would buy diapers. Sometimes and just donate them to these refugee centers. And so that gave me the upper hand. So when I go to a school or Nike or whoever, and I say 10% of my proceeds go to helping refugees, that gives me something that other print shops are not doing. And it connected with my sole purpose, which is giving back and shedding a positive light on refugees. And I get to use my story and inspire others. So everything that we go through can be used, like you said earlier, is for you. You can use it in a beautiful way. And when you channel it from anger to peace and positivity, like the world becomes a huge opportunity to what you can do as opposed to a huge challenge.
I love that. And Nancy in the comments agrees with you. She says that one of the best pieces of advice that her career coach gave was that
Mm,
everything you need inside you to be successful is already inside you, and really believing in yourself, right? So you talk a lot
that's right.
about mindset, and I think one of the biggest obstacles to mindset is perfectionism and fear of failure, right? This fear of failure, but also the fear of other people judging us. How do you
Mm,
overcome these fears to really
yeah.
start focusing on progress and moving forward despite the notion that you're just maybe afraid to start because you don't want to look like a fool or whatnot? Like, how do you overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that's something I've struggled with. You know, we all do at some point in our lives, and sometimes we continue to struggle with, especially again, being a refugee, not knowing English, and all those things. But I also look back and pat myself on the back. I give myself a little bit of grace because here's the thing, here's the reality. We all fail at things. Our favorite people in the world have failed at stuff. Every single human being has failed at crawling, getting up and walking, moving and running. We have all failed at pretty much everything we tried. But if it's interesting enough, you know that if you try a couple more times, you'll get used to it, you'll get a hang of it, and you keep pushing forward. The cool thing about failing is that it's a weird word in the West, as if like we are supposed to be born perfect, we live perfect, and we die perfect. That's not a world I live in. I'm not sure where if any of you live in that kind of world, but that's not reality. Like even trees, every single thing that is in this world and in this universe is trying to thrive, grow, and strive. It's not perfect. What is perfect is that your ability to pay attention to what doesn't work and then try something that again can maybe work, right? This idea of statistics has completely utterly stopped people from pursuing the things that they really want because someone will come and say, oh, the chances of success in that are 9 times out of 10 when that person, him or herself, have not even tried that. So they'll stop someone else from pursuing something or trying something based on some random statistic that was, done or whatever. But here's the coolest part about humanity. Pretty much every record we've ever put out, everything we've ever done, we've always surpassed those things. We've always broken those records. We've always shattered what's impossible. We thought it was impossible to fly. We thought it was impossible to go to the ocean, whatever. Like all those things that we feel are possible through failing and understanding what can work. And so for me, I realized that I only have a limited amount of time here, especially after my father died. That really came to fruition in my mind. But I have a very short time. And the people that are going to probably speak or show up to my funeral they don't matter. Like what they say, like anybody outside of that, like, and if anybody's outside of that circle, um, or inside of that circle and isn't supportive of what I'm trying to do, then you probably shouldn't be in my circle. Like I want people to be around me who are, objectively trying to help me move forward and think about the statistics that are going to get us to from A to B, as opposed to the things that are negative and distract us and not even try. So I'd rather try and fail than not try and regret it. Because here's the reality. The reality is death is upon everyone, and that's a good thing. That's an okay thing. We should accept that. And in my faith and in my culture, my father always used to say, he's like, it doesn't matter what you do, how you do, whatever. What really matters is who you become. So it's not the things that you do, not the money you accumulate, not the wealth, nothing. None of that actually matters because you're not going to take anything with you. But what does matter is sort of your name, your brand, right? Like your essence and how people remember you. So if people remember you as a kind, awesome person who did his best and tried and helped these people over here and did that for that community, like that's who you're going to be remembered as, right? If you think about anybody that you know who has passed, how do you think about them? We think about Steve Jobs, for example. We think about how awesome this new technology that he gave us, right? And how useful it is, and that's great, whether it's negative or whatever. But we don't really sit there and think about, oh man, he made trillions and billions and all of those things, even though that's a part of his story too. So I look at it as like, all right, am I going to let somebody who's a stranger think that my post or my work or whatever is wrong, negative, silly, stupid, dumb, ugly, all of those shameful words that people use, sadly? Am I going to let that person who I don't know, or maybe even if I do know them and they think that of me, then they genuinely don't know the other parts of me. And this is like a Marcus Aurelius quote. He said that if people are talking bad about one or two or three negative things about you, then they must not know the other negative things about you. Right. And it's like they're going to talk negative or positive, they're going to talk, but that should not deter you from pursuing the thing that you want to do because you are here to unfold your purpose. And that is you becoming you to the fullest potential is your purpose. That's your responsibility. And taking that responsibility to heart and owning it and going through life saying, you know what, who cares what they say? Because they probably won't be at my funeral and they probably don't want to see me succeed anyway because sadly something's up with them. So if anything, I feel bad for them. But if you're here, if you're going to support me, you're going to promote me, you're going to like cheer me on, you're my best friend for life. And I want to do the same for you because there's room for everyone on earth to succeed. It
Yeah.
does. That's the reality, right? At whatever it is we're trying, as long as we want to help one another. And so
Amen.
I wholeheartedly believe in that. So
Yeah.
sorry, I went off on a tangent
Oh,
because
it's so fun.
that's a
No,
deep one.
I feel like it's one of the things I always say is surround yourself with people who feel like sunshine, right? Those people who are kind of lifting you up, who are
Perfect.
bringing you forward. And I think one
Yeah.
of the best things I did in my life was to cut relationships that no longer served me, those people who drained you, those people who were takers. Like I'm a giver, right? And I surround myself with givers. And since I surrounded myself with givers, my life has changed dramatically, right? And I used to be in the music industry. For any of
Yeah.
you that have been in the music industry, it is an industry full of takers. And when
Yeah.
I learned that I had to actually leave that industry. And once I did that, and I started going into places and spaces that, promoted me, who people who care for me, my life changed. I think it's funny that you bring up Steve Jobs, who is probably one of those people who you think of as icons. And you think about, the technology that he created as my ring goes off from on my phone. Um, and one of his biggest regrets, and he got, for those that know of how he passed away, he died of cancer at a very young age. And one of his final, his extreme regret was that he wanted, and this is a quote from him, I wanted my kids to know me. I wasn't always here for them. And I wanted them to know why and to understand what I did. And we think about like resiliency, we think about our lives. And I think so much of us live our lives based on other people's expectations for us, right? And I think the
Huge.
most
Mm-hmm.
resilient people in the world are the ones that are okay with bucking the norm and living a life that is authentic to themselves. And I want to read some of
Yes.
the quotes because there's been some really great comments here. SP Fong, perfectionism is self-destructive. It sets us up for shame, judgment, and blame. Missy Bright says, being perfectly imperfect. I love that. Amy Yip, failure is only a failure if you don't learn something from it. Get up and try again. And Missy, again, vulnerability is one of the best human connections and connectors. And I think about my leadership journey as well. And when I was first starting off in my career, I felt like I had to be perfect. I had to be this perfect leader. I had to be stoic. And I realized I wasn't really able to really truly connect with people. And it wasn't until I learned to be able to be vulnerable, to learn to make mistakes, to learn that I would never ever be able to be perfect, that like I really was able to connect and to grow, right? And you talk a lot about community. How
Mm,
important is community in resiliency? Um,
mm,
and the funny thing, most of you on this call probably don't know this, but I met Hussein because I'm writing a book, and the company, the publisher that was supposed to, release the book filed for bankruptcy. And
yeah.
so
Mm,
all of these authors on this imprint, I was pretty much completed the book, and I was supposed to go into editing, and it didn't happen. And I just remember feeling so low, and I was really like, forget this book. It's not going to come out. And Hussein was one of the first people I called, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And there was a few other people to meet, a Malik who's been on these talks as well. And it it was basically the community. Like when we feel like our flame is low, sometimes we need to borrow the light from our friends in our community. So you've built a community, right? For all of these authors. Can you tell us a little bit of, because I think this is a prime, because I was going to ask him, give me an example of resiliency and your example of, you worked for this company, you got laid off, and you started this community. Tell us about
yeah.
this story about how you took lemons and made lemonade, and how you a story of resiliency. And I'm kind of leading you
Mm,
to that example because I think it's a
yeah.
powerful one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I think if we look at our lives, there was probably an example of resiliency this morning, and for all of you, or because resiliency doesn't have to be something, like very dramatic and huge, like going through a refugee camp. It's just sometimes it's just like being like getting up in the morning when you feel really cozy and having to do the XYZ thing, right? So I think, I think like I said, like we all embody it. And so for me, I don't necessarily like go out in the world and think like I gotta be resilient today, and like go do my thing. I just think about like, all right, I'm in this position. I'm in this this opportunity, this challenge. What is the opportunity in this challenge, right? So sadly, this company that I was working with at Land has described here. It was an amazing company. They launched books like David Goggins' books, all these amazing authors, and I was working with them to really learn the industry of publishing because I had sold my print shop back in 2020. And I started writing my book with them in 2019, and I was recruited to help with marketing and community. And so I basically got in this space where I was like, wow, things are in shambles. Let's just build our own sort of community and our own app, and like let's make it awesome. Let's give more to these authors than they even realize. And they were all about that. And that's kind of what I was developing at the company. And then, unfortunately, back in May, the rug got pulled, and I guess funding didn't come through to the company. Long story short, a lot, like over, I would say, like almost 100 of us got laid off, and of course, like 200 authors were left hanging dry, right? And I was really heartbroken because a lot of these authors are like Land, like they became friends, because I hang out with them, I coach them, I help them with things, and I realized that this isn't a challenge, that this is a yet another opportunity to, because I was already great at bringing people together. I love being an author and helping other people. And I saw the power, the immense power of launching a book and getting your stories out there and what that can do for you as opportunities come in. And I saw so many authors struggling, literally running around trying to figure out what to do. I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a raft. This is an opportunity to build a raft and go from there. And so I literally went ahead and I don't know if you're familiar with the Circle platform. I went ahead and just I used my own money. I built a Circle platform. This is all like within like 48 hours of me getting laid off. Here I am getting the layoff call. I hang up and I tell my wife, I was like, but I think I know what I'm going to do. And literally, she didn't see me for the next 2 days. I just went in the room. I went and built this community. And then I sent out massive messages to all the authors, all the people that got laid off like literally within those 2 days. And I said, hey, come to this community. You probably still need your book done. And you probably still need to do the work as far as your writing, your editing, your designing. Why don't we get you all together and you can work with each other directly? I don't want hands in it. I don't want kickbacks. I just want y'all to work together to keep whatever you can going because I believe in all of your stories. And I genuinely meant that. And I didn't charge anybody anything. I just was just like, here's a platform for you to work together and a directory for who you need next in your publishing journey. And I was like, if you need extra advice or help, just reach out to me. And so for the next couple of weeks, that really started growing. And that raft turned into a little boat, and then that boat turned into like an amazing website. And then people started asking me like, what can you do? I know how to build websites and content strategies, whole marketing for authors. Like I've known how to do that. So I developed my own little side business alongside the community, right? And decided that, you know what, the community is there for all of us to connect and thrive and work together. And it's a collaborative space. And if somebody needs my service in the marketing world, you can hit me up for that. So out of this immense challenge for many people, became the most awesome opportunity to launch and start a business and a community that is now growing and thriving. And I get emails, literally, Lan, like 3 days ago, I got an email from this amazing woman who's in Australia. She's a graphic designer, she's a book cover designer. And she said, Hussein, I'm a single mom and joining the rising author community, I am now able to pay my mortgage for the next 6 months from the work that I have received from rising authors. And it's like I get goosebumps just like I've gotten multiple messages like that, which just kind of stop you in your place and you realize that wow, the world is so much bigger than who you are. And not only were you able to solve your problem in that moment, but you were also open like you we built a boat so that everyone else can join.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. And I hope to continue grow that. And the coolest thing about the community is that if it's a cool community to hang out, they do the work for you. They've invited their friends. They've allowed, I know you were on there asking how to, do this or that with your book cover,
Totally.
and you got all the help. Like how cool is that? That changed the course and the trajectory of my life, and I'm forever grateful for community. Community is everything. It's
Well,
the supportive structures we need for our beacon.
well, you are a lot like your father, right? Because
Many say so, and I
so,
can
but
only dream to be a little bit.
but like how he created things from nothing and he created beauty from nothing and he mobilized people together and I think for a lot of us, our purpose, when we're able to really find our purpose and make it our passion, we're able to really kind of help other people along the way. But we have to tap into that, right? We have to believe in ourselves. And I think the most powerful thing about the whole immigrant kind of refugee mentality is this ability to figure things out. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get to point A and B, but I'm going to figure it out, right? And like your father, I don't know how I'm going to feed my family and get them to the US, but I'm going to figure it out. I don't, I just got laid off from you, right? But I'm going to help people and I'll figure it out, right? And that ability to not let it stop. I think about my mother, right? Coming here, no job. Well, I'm going to fold laundry. And then once I fold laundry, it's not going to pay enough. So I'm going to learn how to do hair and nail and get my cosmetology license. And then I'm going to
Right.
be able to, figure out how to get my kids to college, right? You
Yeah.
figure it
Yeah.
out. And I think that is resiliency. And I think of the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. And it's like the most
Great book.
successful people are the people who persevere despite obstacles put in their way. And those obstacles aren't, aren't deterrents. They actually make people stronger because those
Yes,
people figure it out, right?
exactly.
Um, so how do you balance resilience and realism?
Mm.
Because I think it's important to be resilient, but there's also the reality that I am never going to be an NBA player or a WNBA player because I'm height challenged, right? Like resiliency versus realism. Like,
Yeah,
how do you kind of reconcile the two?
yeah, I love that. Um, I think resiliency is designed to help us, like the innate ability within us, like you said, to just navigate the thing in front of us, but also to learn to thrive beyond that, right? And that things are always going to come up. No matter, even if you're thriving, there are billionaires right now with problems bigger than we can comprehend, right? Everyone has human problems, no matter what they are, right? Whatever they're struggling with. So if we know that, then that's actually a strength, right? Meaning that we're all human trying to figure things out. So reality is like if you are trying to be a WNBA player and be able to, whatever, and things don't work out, your knee gets blown out or you're not tall enough or whatever. I think that is you have your eyes on somebody like this vision of someone that you really want to be, right? And it's not necessarily realigned with who you can become, right? So you heard many stories, I'm sure, of athletes who quite didn't necessarily make it, and when they diverge into something else, they realize that that thing is actually their purpose, and the trials and tribulations that led them there, the injuries, the whatever that led them there, were all a testament to how those set of things and situations have helped them conquer what they actually needed to conquer, which was, for example, I always wanted to prove to my dad that I could be a baseball player. Like I know this guy, right? Like great guy, beautiful kids, family, was ignoring them, got into drugs and alcohol because he was mad that he didn't become a baseball player and like a professional baseball player. And I was like, bro, you're hinging your excitement, your life, and everything on something that you coulda, woulda, shoulda been, and not seeing the fruits of your hard work today. Like you're an awesome person, like just charging them up, and like you have these beautiful kids and you have all these things. And I was like, what if that's the game that you actually should be playing? Right? What if you're great at this? Right? And who's going to stop you from winning, best dad awards and all these things? What if you wrote them the book? What if they become the next and best and better iteration of you? Right? I was like, sometimes it's not about you. It's about again who you can become, which is a person that is further out in the distance that we're not necessarily seeing. And it's like by using this challenge as the opportunity to bring it back into reality and say, all right, here's where I am today, and just being frank with yourself, be honest with yourself. For me, I was a little overweight a couple years back. I was a little unhealthy. I was, doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. I was like, you know what? I need to get clear. I need to get really crystal clear. Am I wanting this thing over here because somebody else has got it and I'm being, jealous of it or like think that I should have it? Well, what do I have that that person does not, first and foremost? So there's no comparison. And what can I lean on for me, for my life, and make the best out of what I have in my circumstances? And that's when reality meets resiliency because now you can use what you have overcome already to be the beacon, the confidence that you need to overcome the next thing. And that's the thing. We're always pinning ourselves between what I could have been, what I should be, and all these like imaginary things, as opposed to who I really am and who I really want to become, as opposed to, you know, I'm going to be a baseball player so like I can get the approval of my mom and dad so they can finally fucking love me. And sometimes when people get that, even then, that's not enough. It's got to be more, and they get into drugs and get into all the abuse and whatever it is. And it's because we are lacking our self awareness, realizing who you are, is realizing this the specialty that is already embedded within you, and it's your job, it is your responsibility to figure that out and then understand it and then grow it and maximize that potential. And by then, once you understand that, you don't have time or room for anything else. All those other stories go away because you don't sit there and let anything else steal your joy. Like the thief of joy is comparison. So if we stop this idea of comparing who we could be, even to ourselves, right? Or who we should be or who you want to be, right? Then you realize, even when I was a kid, I was, oh, I'm gonna be the first Iraqi kid in the NBA. That lasted not very long, I promise.
Awesome. So I just put Hussein's book. Go buy it right now. Make sure after you buy it and you read it, comment, etc. It's an amazing book. I
Thank
want to
you.
read some of the comments here too, because I think there's some good ones. Amy Ferrante, there's no innovation and creativity without failure, from Brene Brown. Missy
Mm,
says,
I love
Hussein, there's not anyone can hang up from a layoff call and immediately take action and know what to do. Kudos. That's an amazing story. And David says, depression is caused by focusing on the past, and anxiety is caused by focusing on the future. Best to stay focused on the present. I love that. So I want to kind of open it for questions. Does anyone have questions that they want to unmute and ask Hussein, or you can put it in the comments as well. Um, Feel free to just unmute and ask your question. Otherwise, I will ask my question to him. Anyone? Okay, so let me ask my
I stumped
question.
them.
Yeah. To You answered everything. So
I answered everything. Yeah.
yeah. So from your book, Art of Resilience, The Refugee State of Mind, what are some key insights from your book that you believe is
Mm.
particularly relevant for today's conversation on resiliency?
Yeah. I think ultimately I like, so I didn't call the chapters, I called them layers. Because I look at resilience as the sort of soil of who we are. And who we are is the seed that gets planted in this soil. And it's like you really need this rich soil in order to grow a healthy plant, a healthy you. And these layers, right? The deepest layer, I call it hope, right? And that's really past that is everything spiritual. Like past hope, it's like it's like it's like before the Big Bang, right? Like it's so theoretical, if you will. So I just started at hope and sort of built it from there. And these layers were really all about exploring different parts of just my life and my story, but how it helped me in that moment. So, like, for example, I learned being flexible, not like physically flexible, but just being adaptable, right? From being a refugee and like growing up in America. And I think that's how I'm able to like get off a phone call, getting laid off, and be like, okay, here's what I'm going to do, right? Like that comes from this idea of flexibility. So resilience is not one word. For me, it was divvied up into basically 9 chapters, right? Like 9 stories and 9 aspects of resilience that we all have, but we can now channel our energy and understand that we have these components, right? And so, like supportive structures, hope, tenacity, all these kinds of things are kind of embedded under one word. That one word now carries even more weight once you understand fully, how I dissected it throughout my life. But the one thing that I would say, like, that really, when I wrote the book, that really stood out to me was just that, like, my deep connection to, you know, my mother and father, but more specifically my father because of how he was hard on me, in a lot of ways, like many, I guess, Middle Eastern fathers, right? But he was hard on me in not to worry too much about the art, what I'm good at, what any of that. He was really hard on me on just how to become a better person, just be a person that can, um, when people are around you, how do you make them feel, and how does what they feel not inflict pain on you? And so it was really about, for me, I realized that resilience is really about who you become as opposed to the past and what it's done to you and how you bounce back from that. And I think That's what I learned from writing my story. And so the foundation, the soil set the ground up for the next book, which would be about the garden and the garden warrior.
I love this. Can you tell us a little bit more about this next book?
Yeah, totally. So the next book is right now it's not fully titled, but it's called The Garden Warrior, and it's really about so there was these stories in the Middle East about these garden warriors, and they protected the gardens of Babylon. So a lot of people, when they think the gardens of Babylon, one of the seven wonders of the world, which was in the Middle East and Iraq, that they just thought it was just these gardens, but the gardens were actually about wisdom. So there was the gardens that were surrounding these huge, vast libraries of knowledge, so human knowledge, and these garden warriors were protectors of that knowledge. And so they were scholars, and they were basically they were the merchants. They were the ones that people go to, like the gurus and things like that. But they had a secret life, and that's what I explore. These are the stories that my father passed down to me, and these stories, a lot of them are not necessarily written. They're handed down. And my father basically said that our ancestral heritage connects to garden warriors, and I was like, "The hell's a garden warrior?" This was literally when I was like 25 years old. Like I'm old and I haven't heard about these. And he started telling me about them and who they were and how important they were to our heritage. And so I talk about that in this next book about all of our lives, all of our ancestors are important to us in that how they connect this ancient wisdom to who we are and where we're going. And so I sort of unravel that a little bit. I talk about them, but then I talk about how I am today and how I am trying to be a garden warrior.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, Shannon, you have this amazing question. Do you want to unmute and ask, or do you want me to ask the question for you? Okay. So I guess I will ask the question for her, unless she unmutes.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, please feel
yes.
free to.
Oh yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you, Shannon. So, any resiliency hacks you can apply to your everyday life when going through a tough financial situation or career pivot?
Mm.
And you just went through that. And does your book offer any hands-on activities to do build on how to build resilience?
That's a good question. I didn't look at my book as I guess, how to be resilient, more like how I understand resilience through my life, through my lived experience. So I think we all approach resiliency in a different way, and because all we're all different. But I think the similarities, the thread, is, for example, I don't think there's hacks either. I think it's just how you, instead of going away from the problem, we got to turn towards it. We got to turn the boats into the storm. And what I mean by that is, um, I could have certainly taken a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months off from after being laid off. But I was like, why would I waste that time? I do not have time. Like, that's how I look at things. I look at things like we're all framed by our time here on earth. And so to dwell on, oh, I'm lacking something. So I'm lacking money. I'm lacking, when I think lack, I think I am doing a dishonor and disservice to one, my father, and one, and the other being my creator. And I believe in a creator personally. So it's your prerogative to believe whatever you, I'm not trying to push anybody onto anything. But I believe that God, has given me nothing but abundance and shows me nothing but abundance. So for me to think, and I have, trust me, I've lacked money, I've lost money, all of it, right? Thousands, hundreds of thousands. So then I say, like, what's the opportunity that I can take advantage of next? Right? Like, how can I continue to thrive? How am I going to use this? How am I going to use, what am I good at? What are my abilities? I like pump myself up. And here's a hack if you really want one. Just write the statement. I help people, X people, so whoever they are, professionals, whatever, do XYZ, whatever that is for you. Write that down on a piece of paper and put it above your computer or wherever you can see it on a regular basis. I help people do whatever, right? Here's the reminder: when you can help someone get what they want in life, I promise you, you will get what you want in life. and you can charge for that. And so I always think like anytime my thinking goes in the state of lack, I think about my refugee state of mind, which is this is what I talk about in the book. It's like when you keep thinking that you're lacking something, then you are sort of not opening yourself up for the opportunities that are in front of you. But my father thought positively. He said, well, how can I, what does this guy with a machine gun standing over here really want? If I can get a picture of his mother or of his father that he admires and loves, and if I can paint it for him, would he value that? The question is, yeah, he would. For a bag of rice, that's nothing, right? So my father then encountered this person, asked him if he had a picture of his mom or dad in his wallet or something, and he asked, can I paint this for you? Wow, that's putting yourself in a position of opportunity and putting yourself in a position of value as opposed to being the next person that's standing in line waiting for the bag of rice. My dad put himself in a position where that person can now bring him the bags of rice, right? And so it's utilizing who you are, your abilities. You do not have lack. There is so much opportunity around you. So just put that underneath the statement, right? That's my hack. My hack is reminding myself of what's already there.
I love that. As we kind of close up things, the two things I want to kind of bring up, and to answer your question, Shannon, one of the best advice I got from in terms of resiliency is that we get stronger by doing. And so you have to do hard things daily. So how do you build resiliency? You just keep on showing up every day and doing hard things. And I know that's a simplistic answer, but you build resiliency by doing. Um, I also want to read a quote from on the live, on the LinkedIn live stream from Wendy Ertzen. Love the celebration of failing forward, Hussein is describing, as well as surrounding yourself with supportive people. I would also celebrate the small wins so that you're always moving forward towards progress, no matter how small. This includes what you learn from failures. So closing up, Hussein, how can we find you? How can we help you? I know I put the link to the book. Buy it on
Yeah.
Amazon. Make sure you review. How else can we kind of support what you're doing and find you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lan. I really appreciate this. Shan, I hope that was a good answer to you. I'm sorry if it was long, but I just want to thank everyone for having me. This was amazing. I'm grateful to be able to share my story, share these, I guess, tactics or parts of the story. I guess you could find me on LinkedIn, just Hussein Al-Baiaty, or you can go HusseinAlBaiaty.com. That's where you really can find everything, my website, my what I do, all that good stuff. And if you're in the world of thinking about writing a book, or if you've written one or need help in that world, you're welcome to join the community. You can do that on the community tab under here. I'll put my thing in here
And
too.
if you're ever thinking
Hussein.
of writing a book, follow Hussein because every day he's posting some gems and amazing content on LinkedIn and also YouTube.
Yeah.
And for those who are in the live Zoom audience, one favor to ask, turn on your videos, unmute yourself because Hussein deserves a round of applause. So
Oh,
unmute
you're so sweet.
yourself. Thank you, Hussein. That was
Thank
so
you.
powerful. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you
your
so much.
story. Thank you so much for everyone who showed up all over the world today for this call. Everyone who's on live stream, make sure you comment, share, and do one thing that gets you closer to your
Yeah.
dreams. Okay, thanks,
Yeah. Thank
Hussein.
you all so much. I appreciate you.
Uh,
Shannon, I'll look forward to your follow. All right.